Today we're joined by a very special guest. I know all of you are going to be so stoked about this. We've got Slipknot and Stone Sour frontman Corey Taylor. He's got his second solo record coming out, CMF2, on September 15th. He's got some solo tour dates coming to North America and also in Europe that were recently announced. And he's also got the Taylor Foundation, which is supporting veterans and first responders. Thank you for making time for this, man. I really appreciate it. I'm so stoked.
All good.
So I've heard two songs from the record. We've got Beyond and Post Traumatic Blues. I've really liked both of these songs. I thought they're great. And this is me, to me, this is you at your absolute best as a rock songwriter. This is the Corey Taylor that wrote Through Glass and Bother. And these songs are just in-your-face rock hits. And I love that, man. And so I'd like to know what you can tell us about the songs we haven't heard yet and the overall vibe of this record.
We're just scratching the surface on this thing. I mean, these songs are representative of the rock side, but there's also songs like Breath of Fresh Smoke, which kind of has almost like an Irish country vibe to it, which is an old song, man. Like, I used to play that back with Jibby Cabey way back in the fucking day. There's a really dark, brooding solo acoustic song called Sorry Me. There's hints of some gothic shit with the song called Midnight. There's a lot of great, there's still like tons of great fucking like heavy stuff, rock stuff. I mean, this album is loaded, and I'm really fucking stoked for people to hear it. Like, I keep looking at the watch going, fucking goddamn it, is it September 15th yet? Let's do this. So I'm really stoked, man. To me, this buries the first album.
Yeah, so I mean, you really bring that in-your-face rock and roll from what I've heard so far on this record. And, I was just with Chris Novoselic of Nirvana. He says to tell you hello. And we were talking about this idea about how rock records aren't really made like they used to be. Right. And there's all this talk about, digitized production, not so much digitized, but, modern production, there's a lot of similarities to it with sampling and things like that.
Yeah.
And so, what's your thoughts on the way albums are made today, and how does that apply to your approach on this new record?
I mean, I've been very vocal about how I feel about modern production. It all fucking sounds the same. It all feels the same. It's the same plugins. It's the same fake guitar tones. It's the same fake drums. I mean, it's just, there's no life to it, man. And then they wonder why nobody's listening to rock, or metal or whatever, when everything sounds the same. Why the hell? How do you figure out what to listen to?
Right.
So to me, that's one of the reasons why I've kept the way that I record very traditional.
Sure.
We get in a room together, we record together, we jam together. We let the music become a thumbprint.
Sure.
Instead of a dial tone. When you hear our album, you instantly know it's us.
Yes.
As opposed to, well, I better wait until the singer kicks in because I don't know who the hell this is. Yeah. And even then, half the time, you don't know who it is.
Right.
So, to me, I'm very proud of the fact that I'm in several bands that can record that way, and I've never chinsed on the music, and I've never chinsed on the art because that's how much it means to me.
Yeah, and you could always. That's one of the things I do respect about you is that you could always go through a sort of more formulaic approach to your music. You could write a million versions of Through Glass. You could write a million versions of Bother, but you never have. You've always pushed through more.
Right.
And like I heard Beyond, and that's a fucking heater, man. That is a banger, and I can't really explain how rock music is circulated in the world today. I think people are still figuring it out, but to me, that is a song that is just. I think the way music is done now is very different in the way that music is circulated, but it's just such a massive song. And the first time I heard it, it was immediately so catchy to me. And you mentioned the differences between the first album and the last one.
Right.
The first album was very experimental, and you were trying all sorts of different genres.
Right.
Tell me about the evolution of sound on this record and the approach between the two.
Well, the first album, the reason why it sounded like that is because it was really just a collection of songs, man. You know, like to me, it was just like, okay, I don't know if I'll ever get a chance to record these songs because they were songs that I'd had for years, you know. And I was just like, well, let's just see what happens. Let's record these songs. At least I know I've recorded them, and I can, you know, put them out there. If it sells, it doesn't, whatever, it doesn't matter, you know. So I mean, I had so much fun making that album and then going out and touring on that album when touring opened back up and seeing how all of the songs that I had worked on with Slipknot, with Stone Sour, with this and like all the covers and stuff, how everything really fit together, it emboldened me to take it even further, you know, because obviously I had some more songs left over that I wanted to record, but this time it going out on the road made me focus on how I could shape this album and really make it something even more, even stronger, you know, like, so the production on this was 3 times bigger, 3 times more vivid. The songs to me are 3 times as better. The performances are fucking off the chains, you know, and even though this album is as diverse as the first one, it's very focused and really honed in, man. We were able to, when I was putting the demos together, I could really see a clear picture of how this album could be a journey again.
Sure.
You know, like, so it wasn't just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. It was, here's the box. Yeah. This is what we're going to shape it to, and let's put it out there and let people enjoy the ride.
Yeah, and I think that these songs have been really, really well received. And I wanted to ask about the approach in the studio. Is how are you recording the songs? Is this, you know, are you writing the songs together as a group? Are these songs that you're working on the road? Like, how do you write songs?
Dude, I'm constantly writing, man, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, half the time I'll write a song in my head, and even if I don't have a chance to sit down and play it on guitar, I've written it in my head. Sure. So, but then by the time, and then I'll go over it and go over it and go over it until I write it, I pick a guitar up, and then I can just play it. I did that with Through Glass. I've done that with pretty much everything, you know. So for me, you know, when it comes to stuff like this album, it's 98% stuff that I've written, and then I'll demo it out, and then I'll give it to the guys. And then there's that 2%, which is stuff that either Tooch has brought in and I go, I love that song.
He's great.
Or it's a song that he and I have written together, you know? Dead Flies was like that, which is the last track on the album. It was really an amalgam of 2 songs that we had both been kind of working on, but it was in the same key. And I remember telling him, I was like, dude, these riffs would match with that riff, you know? Let's try and combine these forces, you know? And when I was able to kind of listen to it from there, I came up with some cool ideas for fleshing things out, really kind of working on the overall arrangement. And then I came up with a rad intro for it as well. So being able to kind of look at it, stand back and look at it almost like a rough draft and then going in on it allows me to, A, get them to learn the songs, B, give them carte blanche to kind of create on top of that, you know, as long as the structure's there. I tell them, I was like, listen, if I don't like something, I will tell you, but take this wherever you want to go with it, you know? And then C, I can take away, I can add, I can really kind of wrap my head around it. So by the time we get into the studio, I know exactly what I want to do with it.
Yeah, so I'm really excited from that aspect because I can tell you all seem to be having so much fun. There were all these teasers. Whoever was doing the promo from the studio, those videos were great, right? Because it built a lot of anticipation for the record, and people had a real inside window into how the album production was going, and it just looked like nonstop fun. The vibes looked great.
We laughed our tits off every day, like for real. I mean, well, first of all, I mean, we as a group of dudes, we are such dicks anyway that the second we get in a room together, we're constantly breaking each other's balls.
Hell yeah,
you know?
That's how it should be.
Exactly. So we were having, from the jump, I mean, it started with rehearsals, for Christ's sakes. We were in the room together, and we take it very seriously. And then once we're done working, it's on, and we just with each other all the whole time, right? So we also have the ability to pick things up really quickly, you know. So when we can see that we're kind of falling in the pocket and we're really kind of dialing it in, that's when we start kind of fucking with each other again. So there were times when we'd be in the recording room, and I can't tell you how many times we had to restart because Elliot would cut a fart in the middle of a take. And I would just go, oh my God. So we'd have to reset. We're all dying. It's really bad. So we flew it into one of the songs on the album, and it wasn't even the song that we were recording. It was like it was so funny, it was so loud that it.
Is it hidden in the mix? Don't give the song away.
It's kind of hidden in the mix.
You're gonna have to go and find this.
Yeah. Oh no, you'll find it.
There's gonna be some. Oh, it's obvious.
It's very well. It's towards the end of one of the heavier songs. So and we added it just as
y'all are gonna have to find this song on the record.
Oh, they'll know exactly when they hear it.
So one of the things it's so great to sit here and talk to you because you've been so influential. You've been so great for an extended period of time. There are people that have short runs. At this point, it's undeniable. You've been consistently successful for many years at this point, and there's a lot of big upcoming artists who have been sort of giving Slipknot their flowers, giving them their respect.
It's crazy, man. Like you don't really think about when you first start out. You don't really think about this stuff. You know, I mean, when you're new to the game, you're just really happy that you're in the game. You know. And all you're really trying to do is kind of concentrate on what you're doing, not staying in your own lane, but just try to spread out your offense. You know what I mean? Just to kind of see what works, see what sticks. And I've been very fortunate to have had a lot of stuff that has worked. Like for whatever reason. I'm really appreciative and humbled by it in a lot of ways. So to hear stuff like that, you don't know whether or not people take inspiration from that. You don't know if the fans go from being a fan to being, a professional or a peer, But then you have to remind yourself, it's like, well, man, there's no difference from that than, me and Alice Cooper hanging out.
Right.
Which it still trips me out that Alice Cooper knows my name. All right.
Yeah.
That to me is a head fuck. There's so many people who I looked up to who now regard me as a peer, which in a million years I would have fucking known. So the newer up and comers have seen what we've done and have taken inspiration from it. And not just trying to emulate, man. Right. They've done their own thing. And that is what's fucking important, because we never tried to emulate anybody either. So them taking that inspiration from that, that approach, I mean, it's awesome, And I'm, like I said, I'm very appreciative. We never thought in a million years we would have that,
right?
So to feel it in the newer generation is pretty fucking rad.
Yeah, it really is, and it's cool to see, and I believe that it's like you never thought it would get to this point, and and it's hard to intentionally get to that level, and Slipknot has just become this overall culture that's just stood the test of time, and it's larger than life, and it's worldwide, and it transcends languages.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. One of the greatest compliments I was ever paid was by the singer for The Who. Mm-hmm. And obviously I'd be paraphrasing right now, but he said I was like his favorite singer or whatever. And I have been trying like behind the scenes to find a song to do with them.
Right.
I mean, it's been tricky though, because a lot of the stuff that they've sent me has honestly been from more of a this is Mongol kind of vibe, and I'm like, I would be honored to be on it, but I also wouldn't want to feel like I was trying to cop somebody's culture.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna, as this pasty half Irish, I'm not gonna go on a song that says this is Mongol.
Sure.
And try to say something about because I would never want to step on anybody's culture like that.
Sure.
But we have really been trying to find something that we can do together because that band is so interesting and so unique. And I love the fact that they have taken their tradition, like that traditional music that they've grown up with, and they're putting like a modern spin on it, which is so rad.
There's so many amazing bands. Bloodywood from India as well.
Who I met this, I think it was the singer at Rockville actually, and they were hanging out with Vended. Yeah. So I was like,
Jeremiah put me onto them.
Yeah. So there you go.
Shout out Jeremiah.
So it's been really cool to see just the reach that we've had as a band, man.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, these dicks from Des Moines, Iowa, inspired a band from India. Right. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, and it's real.
Yeah,
it's very real. It's so cool. And that's another thing is there's been this sort of resurgence of nu metal.
Right.
Okay. I remember, and I'm sure you do too, when nu metal was never to me, but some people you talk to, they kind of wince when you say nu metal because it used to be an insult.
Right.
And now it's this huge compliment.
Right.
And like 10 years ago, it would have been a diss. Oh, I never saw it as a diss.
It was verboten. Yeah. No, it was like saying 80s glam rock.
Right.
You know? The funny thing is that it's so weird for us because we were kind of a child of two houses. We were lumped in with nu metal, but we were also lumped in with the first wave of new American metal.
Yeah.
So we were but we always kind of looked at ourselves as our own genre.
Yeah.
So like as much as we, borrowed stuff from nu metal, we were also so much more frenetic and faster and heavier, and we also wore our hardcore influences on our sleeve very blatantly. So we didn't really fit with that, but then again, we didn't fit with the new wave of American heavy metal as well, because we were sludgier, we were a little more dissonant in a lot of ways. We leaned into a lot of like the ninths and the gnarlies and all that shit. So we like I said, I mean, we were kind of, if we were on skis, our legs would have been going a little further apart until the shark bit us in the dick,
Right.
So we always just kind of ran our own path, but we also embraced both, like we were never ashamed to be said this or that,
Right.
It's been cool to see some of these other bands get their due again. Obviously, I mean, the band you're wearing right there, I mean,
KoRn.
To me, people forget just how influential that band is and was.
Yes.
I mean, and I can remember I saw them open for Megadeth back in 94, 95. And this is when I was living in Denver. And they came out, I'd never seen anything like it. And the audience was so ready for them, dude. I'd never been in an audience like that before, A handful of times I've felt it in after that, but you felt like I'm witnessing something. I'm a part of something. This movement is different,
Right.
So the fact that they're getting their due again, I'm so stoked for them as their friend too.
Yeah.
Like I've always been so supportive. They're always still one of my favorite bands.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that they're being appreciated again for just how monumental they are.
Yeah, and I would say too, I don't know if you saw this, but Adidas is now, I mean, this is how big it's gotten.
Yeah.
A major company like Adidas
Right.
is doing the KoRn tracksuit.
Right.
That's
and
huge.
that's, I mean, people have to remember, I think they tried to make that deal with them years ago, and Adidas said no. So they went to Puma.
Right.
And Puma blew up.
Yeah.
So, 360, man. Everything comes back around.
100%. And it is so great because that is exactly the era for me.
Yeah.
That was that. I grew up on y'all, obviously. I grew up on KoRn. I grew up on your Deftones, your PODs, your
Dude, there were
Limp
so
Bizkits.
many great fucking bands out there, man. People forget about Spine Shank. They forget Fear Factory.
Shout out Johnny Santos.
Oh, yeah, dude. I mean,
Yeah.
there were so many great bands coming up at that time, and they were all kind of doing their own thing. There was a unified vibe.
Yes.
They were all doing their own thing, and it was exciting.
Fear Factory, El Nino. I mean, we can go. The list can go.
Oh,
on and on,
absolutely.
but it was just such a special time in music, and I was grateful to, to grow up with that music. And just looking back, like For me, the first show I ever went to from Slipknot, and this is a little bit later in the game, but it was Subliminal Versus Tour.
Okay.
And I went to that, and it was, I think the lineup was like All That Remains, Lamb of God, and then Y'all.
No, it wasn't All That Remains. It was Shadows Fall.
Okay, Shadows Fall.
So it was towards the end.
Yeah.
That was a great fucking tour.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun with those guys.
It was amazing. That whole tour, it was just, I had never experienced the band in person, and I didn't get the band before I saw you.
Right.
And then I went to the show, and I think you were saying that you had like 103-degree temperature or something.
I was sick as hell, yeah.
And it was one of the best shows to this day I've ever seen.
Was that the one in Madison?
It was in Virginia.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You
So
were very
it was,
sick.
not the Norma, but I know exactly
Yeah.
what it was. Yeah. No, it was. Yeah, that was a gnarly tour.
Yeah, it was amazing. And that whole movement of nu metal, just to me, was something that has just stood the test of time. Now, self-titled, next year you're going to have this 25-year anniversary.
Yeah.
And I know that there was some rumblings. You said that there were conversations about something happening next year. And I just want to say, whatever it is, when I posted about that, people went nuts in a good way.
Yeah.
That is an album that I think people would love to see honored, and it means a lot to a lot of people. I'm sure it means a lot to y'all. When you made that record, now almost 25 years ago, what was the vibe like then? What was that? What was your mindset like going into making a record like that?
You know, it was kind of the perfect storm because nobody knew who we were. Nobody had any expectations. We didn't really. I mean, we wanted to make an amazing album. That was all, I mean, full stop. That was it.
Sure.
We weren't worried about taking over the world. We didn't even think anybody would give a shit, to be honest.
Right.
You know? From day one, our whole mentality was, let's just be a band that at the most we could sell 250, 300,000 copies. And then we can tour, dude. We can make a living touring. We were more focused on being an underground band than being anything else. We didn't know that the world was waiting for something like us. In full disclosure, dude.
Right.
So when it exploded, we weren't ready for it. But it also taught us something, was to go into the studio with absolutely no expectations. Go in and make the album that you want to make, which is one of the reasons why Iowa sounded the way it did.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons why Volume 3 sounds the way it does. We just said, no bullshit. No, don't worry about what anybody's going to fucking say outside these walls, because they've been trying to write us off for a very long time, you know?
You were supposed to break up after Iowa. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had talked about breaking up after the first album.
Yeah.
I to this day, I was like, dude, that's the most punk rock fucking thing. Yeah. That would be so amazing. And then just sell like, fucking quad platinum.
Yeah.
Right? And then go. And then nobody would know because we had the masks on. Because I hadn't done Stone Sour yet. Nobody had seen any of us, right? So it would have been fucking beautiful, you know?
I remember when the Bother video came out.
Right.
And everyone was like, that's the guy from Slipknot unmasked. It was like something, there were huge perils of WWE to it.
Right.
Where Slipknot came out, and I don't know if anyone's ever made this comparison before, but I'm just saying there was this, you all were larger than life, not literally characters, but these personalities that you looked at, and I'm like, I want a fucking action figure of that.
Right.
And, the look, the jumpsuit, the dreads that you had or whatever, the whole look of the band was just, they're banging on kegs. I want to talk about that Ozzfest where you first went out, and there's these videos which have accumulated millions of views on the internet of people just going back and going, these guys were out of their fucking minds. What was that tour like? I know there's a lot of craziness on those Ozzfest tours.
The first Ozzfest tour, and I have a very unique perspective from it because I couldn't talk. I'd fried my voice.
Wow.
Literally about a month before we went out on the road.
That's terrifying.
I ate too soon before a rehearsal, and then went to rehearsal, and then I had acid reflux really bad. I fried my vocal cords to the point where they put me on oral steroids. I had to gargle with this crazy shit. And so I couldn't talk. I could sing for a half hour a day. And they said, you have to do absolute pure vocal rest for at least 2 months. And I was just like, oh, so I carried a pad of paper around.
Oh,
and
man.
for real, like,
Yeah.
I mean, I took it very seriously.
Sure.
I quit smoking. I didn't drink the entire time. I hadn't really done drugs really. So all I did was really just drink coffee and water. I ate once we were done and everything, but I didn't talk. So I walked around with a fucking pad of paper, all of Ozzfest. So I'd waited my whole life for the big tour, right? And here it is, and the great big mouth can't make a fucking noise, right? And I was just like, of course this happens. Of course this happens.
Right.
I just remember us being so nuts and so excited to be there that nothing got its say. It was one of the few times in the beginning where we all really were still on the same page, you know, because there were times after that that we started to pull apart for whatever reason.
Right. It's 9 people.
In that beginning, man, I mean, we were a fucking unit, dude. Nobody fucked with us, and we didn't fuck with anybody who didn't have it coming. So we set up our own shit. We broke down our own shit. It was, you know, we were going on sometimes at 10:30 in the morning, but because word had gotten out about us, I mean, there were people lined up trying to get in, and there were a handful of times, and so much credit to Sharon Osbourne because she got it.
Sure.
There were so many times where we were meant to go on, and there was still a line going. They hadn't even opened doors yet, and she made them open doors and get as many people in as possible, and she pushed our stage time back so we wouldn't go on in front of an empty crowd because
That's
she
great.
knew. Yeah, I mean, it's very, very cool, man. The Osbourne family has been so good to us.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, you know, with Sid and Kelly now. I mean, it's almost was meant to be, you know.
Right.
It's crazy in a weird way.
Yeah, they just had their first child. Congrats to them. That's huge.
But, you know, the Osbourne family took us in. They gave us the biggest boost of our fucking career, because I mean, we were Jack's favorite band.
Yeah.
That's the whole reason we got on that.
He posted a picture on stage recently
Oh,
of
really?
him and Sid.
Nice.
And he's this little kid, I
Yeah.
guess. And he posted some sort of a photo. I could be wrong, but
It was probably a Polaroid, because we
Yeah.
were carrying Polaroid cameras. I have a whole litany of pictures from the stage.
Right.
I would take Polaroids from the stage of every audience.
You've never posted those?
I still got it somewhere.
I
I've
can
got
only
it.
imagine the archive you're sitting on.
I wrote a journal of that whole time, and someday I'll do something with it.
There
I'll
needs to be
digitize it.
some sort of a Slipknot documentary or something, in my opinion.
I mean, it's funny you say that, because we've been talking about it.
You would sell the shit out of it on DSPs.
But
and
there's
all
it would almost have to be a series.
Yeah.
Because there's so much.
Yeah.
Dude. And I wouldn't want to be a part of anything that didn't
that. Honor the legacy.
at least honor the legacy of Paul and Joe.
Yeah.
And also honor the legacy of where we all came from, how it all came about, dude. I mean, it was lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you could recreate that today.
Right.
Because of what the world represents now, you know.
Sure.
But if it could happen once, why couldn't it happen again?
Right. I do. I just think that is you have such an amazing history in it, and you've overcome so much adversity through your career, and the band just has that amazing history. And again, I imagine there's some really cool archive stuff that people haven't seen.
Oh, dude. Clown has years of footage.
Wow.
I mean, it's criminal how much footage he had. He is, you know, to his credit, man, he was so ahead of his time, was always documenting. kept everything.
Right.
And he just knew. I mean,
He's so
there's a
influential.
reason why he's the brainchild behind this band, is because he has an understanding for so much crazy shit that, yeah, his mind is brilliant.
He really is. And people forget too, this was something that I only found out a few years ago. I just didn't make the connection, but he was somehow involved in Mudvayne's LD50,
Yeah.
which was a dope record.
He's an executive producer on it. He actually helped discover them as well.
Yeah.
He's the one, I believe he's the one that put them in touch with Garth.
That's amazing.
And I can remember he introduced us to them they hadn't even signed yet, but we were playing in Illinois, in Peoria, and they came down to the show.
Wow.
And that was where I met Chad, and I met all those dudes, Matt, Ryan. It was really cool. It's been really cool to kind of look back on that as well, and the fact that they're back and they're doing their thing.
I'm so happy they're back.
Yeah, it's very cool. So I remember all that shit. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And again, it's like you lived through a movie.
We knew Dave Williams
Through Drowning.
way before Drowning Pool.
Right.
He was a maggot from Texas who just came to every fucking show and was working on getting his band signed. So we knew him way before anybody else did.
I didn't know that.
I was slated to hang out with him 2 days after he passed away, because they were doing a radio show that Stone Sour was actually on.
Right.
And that was a bad day.
Yeah.
It was a horrible. He was one of the sweetest people on the fucking planet.
Yeah. People and his music, fortunately, is still, very much so.
That first album is so fucking good.
It is, like, Tear Away and stuff.
Really,
dude.
yeah.
Like,
People forget, man. You can go back and listen to that album, and you put that album out now, and it's still,
yeah.
it still resonates with people.
Yeah, it really does. And it's cool because, we talk about KoRn, but a lot of those bands are getting second looks too. And I hope that maybe we spend some time looking back and celebrating the past, but we also apply it into today's world as well.
Right. Yeah.
I think there are signs of some positive activity happening in rock, but I think it's not so much in the new metal wave coming back. I think what you're seeing, and I'm a big fan of country music, you're seeing this sort of, for the last 15 years or so, I think that what was once constituted Southern rock is now country. And
I'd agree with that.
yeah, so when people say, like, there's not a lot happening in rock, it's like, well, it depends on how you classify it.
Right.
And so when you look at artists like a guy I really love, and he's a really nice guy, and his music is great, is Hardy, and he is doing that dude is on a wave, and he's a great dude, and I know he loves Slipknot.
Yeah, he and I talk.
Yeah.
He's super cool, man.
Hardy rules, man. He's a great
really
guy. And he's kind of, we want him to be as much in rock as possible, just like Jelly Roll as well.
Right.
And, I'm loving to see that kind of activity. Another person that also said that they were such a fan of your work and would love to work with you was also Demi Lovato, too.
Yeah.
She's a massive artist, and she was talking about, it's just so cool to see how many people from all different types of backgrounds have had an impact from Slipknot. One of the things I wanted to ask is, this record deal with Roadrunner has ended. You had a great, amazing run with Roadrunner, and now you all are, to the best of my knowledge, sort of free agents.
Yeah.
And I feel like the sky is the limit for Slipknot now, where you could do anything you want, really, at this point, I suppose. Yeah. And I wonder, how does that change the band? What are you seeing? There's been a few months now that have passed. Is there any signs of what you all have ideas about what you want to do, whether it materializes or not?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely something we're talking about, The relationship with Roadrunner towards the end wasn't even close to the way it was when it first started. A lot of that had to do with the great call of 2012, when they fired basically everybody we knew, and then just kept proceeding to fire everybody who loved working with us. It's one of the reasons why we and our management company 5B had to start creating departments that could fill in the blanks for what Roadrunner no longer was. Roadrunner had gone from the pinnacle of being the #1 metal and rock label really to stand up with the big boys.
Yeah.
It went from that to being a hallway in Warner Brothers, and it was embarrassing. The people who we were working with, the majority of the people we were working with, they didn't care. The guy who ran it certainly didn't give a shit. He was not too long ago let go. So good riddance to him. We, at a time when we should have been their breadwinner and this band that they should have been really looking after, they were ashamed of us.
Wow.
And they just kept trying to push all of these other bands around us, in spite of us in a lot of weird ways, man, And nothing against those bands at all.
Sure, totally.
Nothing. They,
Yeah, I get what you're saying. They allocate the budgets, the labels. You're right. It's nothing against the
But
bands.
at the same time, you're talking about a label who was really only still around because of the work that we were doing.
Yes.
And a lot of the shit that we were selling.
Right.
And a lot of shit. I mean, it's fucking...
They came into prominence with Slipknot,
Well, we were the first band to go platinum for them.
Right.
And we were the first band to give them a #1. Well, I can't say that because Nickelback did it, I believe.
Sure.
But then we came back later, but we consistently sold millions and millions and
Right.
millions. So for them to basically, I mean, we were always the bastard kid to them.
Yeah.
And so, well, to kind of circle back to what your question was. Now that we're not on that label, now that we own our own destiny.
Yes.
And we can do whatever we want. It's kind of exciting again because now we don't have to run our ideas by anybody.
Yeah.
We don't have to try and force it through this corporate filter, which they were always trying to do. And we just kept telling them to f*** off.
Right.
We were going to f***ing do what we wanted to do.
Right.
So now we can almost do carte blanche, and there's a handful of things that we're talking about doing right now. But the cool thing is there's no timeline. We don't have to have a timeline. We could put something out if we want to. We can go in and write a bunch of shit together and then, maybe pick the 4 or 5 best songs from it and just release that, see what happens, We don't really know, right now we're just trying to kind of get through these next shows and do our thing so we can catch our breath, kind of see what's next.
Right.
But I know that some of the guys are chomping at the bit to write, which is cool. It's been a long time since we've all been really excited to kind of get in the same room again and throw fucking ideas out.
Yeah, man.
Really kind of go old school with it. So that's where we're at.
We're
great. Still, we can still feel that passion kind of plopping up again. So that's going to be exciting.
Yeah. I want to talk about the difference in the business model in the way that you have music being released.
Right.
So now everything is sort of reliant on streaming. Albums are not as prevalent as they once were. What is your take or preference on, you see some bands, one of the bands that I see that has a lot of success dropping singles is Falling in Reverse.
Right.
Anytime, y'all have done this too, anytime Slipknot does it, it always breaks the internet.
Right.
And
I want to say we were the first heavy metal band to actually do it with
Right.
All Out Life.
Right.
Because everybody told us it was a bad idea.
Right.
And
I
then all of
remember
a
that
sudden,
day.
we just changed the fucking game. So
Right.
it's like, well, fuck all these pop motherfuckers. If they can do it, we can do it too.
Sure.
Continue your question.
No. I'm just saying, like, what is your, what's your thought on it? Would you, if you had a choice, what would your preference be? Do you think there's upsides to either one?
I mean, creatively, it means that you can kind of do carte blanche.
Sure.
My problem now, as it always has been, is the fact the artist is still not paid fairly.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that's the good thing about physical copy is that you have to compensate the artist for the work that they do, you know, and most of that money goes back to recouping a lot of the costs that made, you know, but streaming doesn't do that.
Sure.
Unless you negotiate your contract in a certain way.
Right.
It's, you know, it's doing deals with devils that a lot of people maybe don't even understand, you know. It comes down, you know, it's the old adage where fans, if they feel like they've been done dirty, they yell at you. It's like, well, I pay your salary. It's like, well, no, you don't. Yeah. Because you try to get everything for free and you get it from the streaming system, and the streamers don't fucking pay the artists. They pay the label. The label then doesn't have to pay us. And that's one of the reasons why I want that legislation to go through, is because then maybe younger bands can have a fighting chance to fucking stick around. Maybe a younger band will have time to develop and become something that maybe they couldn't do before. Maybe bands can have their music make money for them instead of having to spend 350 fucking days on the road so they completely lose their home life.
Yeah.
You know, that's the problem. Streaming, for better or for fucking worse, is driving the little guy out of business.
Sure.
You know, and people can sit there and go, well, it's easy for you to say. Well, that's why I'm saying it. You know, I'm not making shit.
Right.
Fucking streaming, you know. You have to stream billions to make hundreds. You know how fucking sad that is?
Yeah, that's insane.
It's insane, and it fucks over people who can put their blood, sweat, and tears into this, you know? And I get that I'm making myself a target. We talked about this before. I'm making myself a target by saying something about it. But if somebody doesn't fucking stand up and say it in my position, then it never gets fucking said. Because all of the people who are fucking making money right now aren't going to fucking say it. So who's going to fucking stand up and say something for the guy who's not fucking making anything? Yeah. Because their music's being fucking stolen from them.
Yeah, I do. I could not agree more with you on that. I've never understood the revenue model for these streaming services and how it sort of came after Napster. And
it's because it's unchecked territory.
Right.
They could set up their own, really their own fucking ticket. And they knew that it would work because of Napster.
Right.
They knew that the DSP would work because they saw that people were flocking to do it in the first place. But what they didn't realize was that it's almost a Ponzi scheme. One person pays a little bit to get all of this stuff, but then that little bit has to fucking pay all these other people. So what they did was they said, well, fuck it, we'll just pay the label then. And then we'll let the label be the bad guys. But the second all of those DSPs appealed the legislation that was rightfully passed to make sure that artists actually get paid for their art,
which should happen.
They spun that shit right back on themselves.
Right.
Because if it were fair, it would be based in a lot of ways along the same lines as radio compensation.
Right.
Publishing. Right now, it doesn't have anything to do with that.
Or brand deals. Why is it when you license your music to a television show or something like that, it's probably a very lucrative deal, whereas, or video games or whatever.
Well, it used to be.
But
now, not anymore.
Right.
Because they're like, we'll get it from you either way.
Right.
We don't have to pay you.
Right.
All we have to really do is talk to these people. But since we're going to be fair, we're going to talk to, we'll give you $25, the equivalent.
Crazy.
You know, it's fucking sad, man.
Right.
There's a reason why we have to stay on the road as much as we do. It's because we don't fucking make any money unless we stay on the road.
Right.
Because the chips are stacked against us.
Yeah. I believe in that 100%. I could not agree with you more on that, because it is crazy how that whole system works, and and we could go on about that for hours. I mean, that's just it.
We won't bore anybody with the bullshit that goes on behind the scenes.
It's the same with merch cuts. I think anyone who looks at it, it's like smaller bands, especially. You know, you look at these up and coming bands, and they're paying venues to sell the stuff that they manufacture, and it's like,
Well, and what a lot of people don't realize is the venues make them
Right.
they make them hand their shit over.
Right.
A lot of venues, and you can quote me on this, those bastards. A lot of venues won't even let you sell anything until you give them a percentage of something that they didn't have a fucking thing to fucking do with in the first fucking place.
They didn't share in the risk of creating the product.
Nothing.
Right. It doesn't make any sense.
Exactly.
It does not make sense to me. And
it's, I mean, at that point, you might as well sign a 360 deal.
Right.
Because at least you're going to fucking have some money to pay some bills for a second.
Right.
Because they're just everybody has their fucking hands in your pocket.
Yeah. It's getting to a point where you're seeing the costs and everything increasing, and it's becoming hard for these up and coming bands to tour, and it's heartbreaking to see that, because this entire rock music cannot thrive without bands being able to afford to go out on the road. And so we have no next generation, excuse me as I'm on my soapbox, but there will be no next generation if a band can't afford to tour, and it's getting really difficult. Where you're hearing costs of tour buses, costs of vans.
Until people say something about it, it's not going to change. Right. Like the fact that, and listen, we as the artists, we love the fact that the fans support us as much as they do. However, your support isn't getting to us. It's getting to them. And that's the problem. Until people stand up and realize that the system has been rigged against us again, it's not going to change.
Right. That's the problem. And so the other thing I want to ask is, these are some more fun questions that are more so just reflective. Who are some of the favorite musicians? I want to ask you some stuff that maybe you haven't been asked before, just that reflecting on your career. Okay. Who are some of the coolest musicians that you've ever gotten to meet that you're like, holy shit, I can't believe I met them?
Oh, man. I mean, I've been pretty fortunate, dude. I mean, especially this many years in my career to have met a lot of cats. Right. We talked about Alice Cooper. That was so fucking rad. Mike Patton. Obviously, Dave Vanian, I met from The Damned, which blew me the fuck away. He was one of the sweetest fucking people on the planet. Obviously, the Osbournes, getting to meet that. I remember the day I met Ozzy, man. He came running up to the table, and we were all kind of sitting with Sharon and Jack and Kelly at catering. And he was running up to talk to Sharon about something, and Sharon stopped and he goes, Ozzy, these are that band that I was telling you about, the 9-member band, Slipknot. And Ozzy, without even missing a beat, he goes, 9 members, I want to be number 10. And I just went, it was rad.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, it was very, very cool. It was me, Joey, I think Fane was sitting there. That clown might have been, but we were all just because we'd played, so I'm sitting there with my notebook, I'm having lunch, and then all of a sudden,
he said he wants to be number 10.
It was fucking crazy, dude. I've been very fortunate to meet a lot of my heroes, for lack of a better term, man, and I'm also very fortunate to be able to call them acquaintances and friends. Right. Obviously Duff is one of my good friends in this fucking.
He was shouting you out lately too,
dude. And it's, he's one of to me, he's one of the most special songwriters, rock stars. Dude, he's been through hell and back. He's the dude who I look to because when he wants to change something about himself, he just does it.
Yeah. He
doesn't get on a fucking soapbox and give you a dissertation on why he's doing it. He just fucking does it, And to me, that is the quintessential example of a strong person. I won't even say man, just a strong person.
Sure.
And that's something that I try to emulate, man. It's, when there's things going on in my life, I don't go out and just blather about it in the press. I just fucking do it, There's things that have happened in my life that nobody fucking knows about.
Right. You're not on social media like that now.
No, because I got off of social media. I have a close friend run it for me.
Yeah.
I make sure that I post stuff, but I don't need those endorphins anymore, man. And I realized that by getting off of social media, I spend so much more time with my family. I'm fucking present.
Hell yeah.
There's so many wormholes and rabbit holes that you can fucking find yourself burying yourself in that, it really should be, well, it comes down to people's personal choices.
Sure.
But I've seen what it can do to people when people are too stuck.
Right.
At that point, their hand is just replaced by a fucking selfie stick.
It's addictive.
It's it. It's very addictive.
Yeah.
And they knew it was.
Yes.
And they let it fucking happen anyway.
When you grow up and you watch like cartoons, when you're growing up, they would depict this television where it was that circular.
Right.
Like, woo,
right.
That's it. Now you literally have that now.
And now, it used to be you just go into the room where the addiction was. Now it's everywhere you go.
Yeah. I remember being a kid, I've always been very much into tech, and I just remember thinking, I'll have a TV on my watch, and you've got worse than that, where I think we'll look back on phones one day and go, it wasn't a great idea.
No. But we're going to say that about AI anyway.
Yeah, I think AI is also a little startling. There's good parts of AI, maybe in some fields, but when you get into the creative aspect, I don't know.
Well, now you've just given people one more reason not to fucking trust anything.
Yeah.
What are we trying to prove?
Right. What's the point of it?
What is the fucking point? Yeah, it's great. Yeah, everybody's using it as a toy right now. But what happens when somebody programs AI to create the most realistic video of the Russian fucking prime minister fucking declaring war on a country, and then all of a sudden that country takes it serious?
Yeah.
And then and then one thing leads to another, and now we're exchanging fire.
Yeah.
And it's just a domino effect across the world. What happens when that fucking happens?
Yeah.
See, it's people they don't think anymore. They just do.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks they're the fucking Heath Ledger Joker.
Right.
They just do things. Well, guess what? You don't always have to fucking do things, you asshat.
Right.
Figure it the fuck out, you mook.
Right. No, yeah, the AI stuff is not... It's scary when you mess with like ChatGPT, or another one I've been messing with is Midjourney, and it's shocking how it can draw an extremely accurate image and things, and it's not good. I think there's more drawbacks. It needs to be dealt with. You've done so much in your life. You've gotten to do a lot of really cool shit. Is there anything on your bucket list you haven't done that you're like, man, I got to do, whether it's in music or out? Like a skydiving? Is there some?
I've done that.
Oh, wow.
I don't recommend it. I did not fucking enjoy it.
Really?
Yeah. This is the reason I'm not going to do it again.
Was it scary?
I had the third worst landing that you could ever fucking possibly have.
Oh, my goodness.
Obviously, the first is you die. Second is you break every fucking bone in your body.
Right.
The third was what I had, which was I ruptured my eardrum. This is while I was on tour, by the way.
Oh, my goodness.
Ruptured my eardrum, gave myself a concussion, sprained my thumb. My thumb came all the way back and hit my fucking arm like that. I had this giant fucking knot on the top of my head. And I was spun around in such a way that my neck should have probably been broken. Wow. Yeah, it was no fun. It was all because we got about I don't know, 100 feet off the ground, and this crosswind caught us.
Right.
And mind you, I'm hanging off the front of a 6-foot man, like a baby Bjorn, So I'm attached to this dude, like we're fucking, conjoined twins, and it grabs us, and it just went, boom, like that, and it fucked me up. We were in New Zealand, so I'm on tour, and I come up, and it was crazy, dude, and I couldn't hear out of this ear for at least 2 months while it healed.
Jeez, man.
Yeah, it was fucking gnarly, and like I said, I had a concussion, so I don't remember a lot of it. But it was gnarly. My thumb swelled up about the size of my wrist. Well, and so I walked around. So yeah, I fuck skydiving.
Right.
Forever. I would probably bungee jump again before I went skydiving, to be honest, which I didn't enjoy either, but I was just crazy enough that I was like, I'm going to fucking do it. I did a crane, which was the biggest crane I'd ever seen in my life, and scared the ever-living out of me.
What do you do as like a hobby? Like when you're away from music, like what's the random thing that you're like?
I read, man. I read a lot. I write. I hang out with my kids, when you have kids, hobbies are kind of few and far between. You know what I mean? Like, there's still shit that I would love to watch that I haven't got to catch up on. You know. But I mean, other than that, you know, I mean, I'm lucky enough that some of my hobbies kind of bleed into the stuff that I actually want to do professionally.
Sure.
You asked me what I want to do.
Yeah.
I have a series of novels that I want to write.
Hell yeah.
Which I'm still toying with, and I keep tiptoeing and starting and restarting the first chapter. But I know the stories that I want to tell. I just need time to do it.
Sure.
And it's something I don't want to allow myself because I'm a crazy person. I want to score a movie, which I'm actually on the verge of doing.
Oh, that would be sick. Because you're so much into horror.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I actually was just in a movie not too long ago. And that's the movie I'm actually getting an opportunity to score.
Wow.
So I'm pretty stoked about that. And I'll probably release the score through Decibel Cooper. So
Right.
I have a built-in reason to fucking really make sure that I do it really, really good. But I've already got like 4 to 5 pieces written in my head.
Right.
That I just need to get the final cut to, so I can kind of map, like, just really put it together. It'd probably take me 2 days to do.
Yeah.
Because I work really fast. I know exactly what I want to hear. I know exactly the pieces that I want to do because I know the movie because I was in it. So I had that head start on it. You know.
How much are you
worried
in it?
about?
Like, is this like, how much is, I mean, I don't know how much you can share on it, but like how much of the movie, like, are you, this is like a film or a documentary?
It's a film.
Oh,
It's
wow, so you're
yeah,
acting.
so I'm acting again.
That's
yeah.
awesome, man.
Well, I don't know if that's a good thing. I mean, I don't know if anybody's seen my other movies, but it's not like I'm f***ing Olivier over here. I'm not trying to win any Oscars.
No, you're chasing what you want to
But
do.
yeah, man, it's one of those things that if I'm afforded the opportunity to do it, I'm gonna do it, you know, because I just love to try and do shit,
Right.
you know. So, if the time permits, I can fly in and out. I did it really quick, and I did it around their schedule, so I could do it, you know, around my schedule, and I could come home and be a dad.
Sure.
You know? So, yeah. So I mean, there's still a handful of things that I want to do,
Right.
and that I'm looking to try and do, and I'm being proactive to do them. But once I run out of ideas, I'll just be like, all right, it's time to find my favorite chair and gain some weight. You know, that'll be what I do.
You really think, this is the selfish Slipknot diehard fan in me, you really think that you will retire at some point in the near future? You deserve it. I mean, you've done it all.
I mean, I've already said that physically I maybe have 5 years left, but at the same time, I go out of my way to really try to take care of myself.
Yeah.
Now, I have a lot of fucking miles on me.
Yeah.
It's hard for me. People don't realize this, but it's when I walk, I'm almost in constant pain.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I know you've had some knee
I've had the
issues.
knee.
Yeah.
It's the knees. It's my feet. I have a broken toe on this foot. I have gout across my feet.
Oh man, dude.
And it gets up into my joints and shit. Yeah, it's tough. I'm not as nimble as I used to be. I'm not 35 anymore.
Right.
It's hard. But there are ways to do shows
Yes,
that
there are.
don't require being that crazy. Now,
And crazy travel.
well, that's the problem. It's the travel doesn't lend itself to being healthy.
Right.
Because at that point, it's not like being home. You've got all your stuff. You kind of at the mercy of what's there for you.
Sure.
So you're gonna eat like shit. You're gonna sleep like shit. You're gonna feel like shit.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, you're gonna play like shit.
Yeah.
And we don't want that.
Right.
You know. So it's tough. Even a guy at my level, it's not always, you know, laid out catering and, you know, the best food,
Totally.
the best people. It's sometimes it's
true.
It's a soggy sandwich at 12:30 in the fucking morning,
It's
and you're
true.
looking at it going, if I put this in my body, I'm gonna throw up.
It's not glamorous.
It's not.
That's what people.
And people don't fucking get that.
Traveling is rough.
You know why they think that? Is because that's all they see
Yeah.
on Instagram,
Yeah.
on TikTok, on this and that. So you're seeing the commercials.
It's a grind.
Yeah, it's fucking sad. Man, there have been times we've gotten off stage, we've gone right to the airport, flown out, We don't sleep until 7 the next day. And now we're just all f***ed up, man. And our crew gets it even worse.
Right.
Because they have to fucking go in, make sure everything's good, and then they can go fucking take a nap. So it's not gravy all the time, man. It's tough. It's hard fucking work. Even at our level,
Right.
it's hard work.
Well, I don't want to hold you too much. I just got a couple more questions here, and this is the best conversation I could have asked for. This has been so
Only
good.
because I don't know when to shut up.
No, dude, this has been freaking kick-ass. I am 11 out of 10 stoked about this, dude. This is so great. So just a couple more fun ones. Would you be interested in doing something in pro wrestling again? If they came calling and it all made sense, would you, whether it's a manager?
You know, the funny thing is I, a few years ago, I was talking to H about it, and he was just like, would you want to do anything? I was like, man, I wouldn't want to do anything that A, I couldn't put over,
Right.
and B, didn't look real.
Right.
You know? Because when me and Corbin had our thing,
Yeah, which was so
I at
cool,
least
man.
was still pretty physical, like I could still, I sold it as well as I could. He was fucking genius. We had a lot of fun.
It was so cool.
I don't know. There's no way I could work a match, because of my knees. I mean, I physically can't do it.
You could cut a promo, though.
I could, well, yeah, I mean, I could be a manager. I can do something like that. But again, it's the time.
Right. You're so busy.
When you have any of those companies, AEW, WWE, NXT, fucking Ring of Honor, any of those companies, that's a commitment. I would have to take time away from certain shit, or I'd have to do it in the time that I afford my family.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
You don't want to give that up.
And at this point in my life, that time is becoming even more precious to me.
And you're right for that.
Yeah, I mean, it still bums me out that there are huge pieces of Griffin's life that I'll never get to see because I was working.
Right.
Now, he understands it now because of he's doing it, but that doesn't change the fact, So learning that, it's made me turn around and look at my daughter's life now and go, no.
Right.
I need to make sure that I'm there for her,
You deserve that, man. You've
Well,
given
and
so
it's-
much of yourself.
If I don't make the time, nobody's going to fucking make it for me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because everybody else has got their own wants and needs that they need. If I don't make it a priority, nobody else is going to.
Right.
So that's what I've learned in this life, is if you don't make something a priority, nobody else is going to fucking make it for you.
You're right about that 100%.
So, yeah, I mean, it's at the end of the day, when it's time for me to stop, I'll work from home, but I'll still be working, maybe do the odd show here and there.
Oh, yeah.
But I won't be depressed because I'll have my whole fucking family to hang out.
Yes.
So would I do something with WD? It all depends. I've been lucky enough they've had me on their shows and whatnot. That's been fun. Just doing color stuff. But other than that, man, I wouldn't be able to make the commitment.
Right.
And I'm not the guy who would show up and get paid to do something that I couldn't do.
Right. Yeah, I want a Corey Taylor WrestleMania run,
Yeah.
heat, heel, manager, Paul Heyman
and
style.
I would have all the
kill
heat.
it, dude.
I'd have all the heat, dude. I'd have X-Pac heat. 'Cause
Yeah,
I would
dude.
go so deep.
Yes.
I would go so fucking deep with the shit because I wouldn't care.
Hell yeah.
But then again, they'd be like, okay, we're
Tone it down.
spending more in security than you're actually making right now. And we're gonna have to let you go.
Hell yeah. Okay, so
That sound you hear right now is a downpour.
it is pouring.
It has been dumping here for hours.
I'm gonna walk a mile to my car with
I'm
these
not.
cameras, and it's gonna be great. It's fine.
We're gonna give him a plastic bag to
It's
wear
been worth it.
on
It's
his
been worth
head.
it. Okay, 2 more questions for you.
You said 2 questions 4 questions ago.
All right, what's one of the proudest moments from your entire career?
Oh, dude, I don't know. I don't know, to be honest, man. The first time we headlined Download, and then headlining Download a month ago.
It's crazy pouring, like hurricane pouring.
I mean, I'll be honest, dude. Just the fact that we're still here.
Yes.
You know, there's a culmination. There's so many little moments that when you look at them will never compare to the fact that we're still here.
Right.
You know, this type of shelf life doesn't exist for bands like us.
Right.
It doesn't exist for guys like
So
me.
true.
You know what I mean? Like, so I'm very fortunate that I've had success with pretty much everything that I've done. That comes down to the acceptance of the fans, the fact that I've been able to stay at it at this level. My proudest moment hasn't happened yet. You know, it just keeps getting better and better for me, and I'm just happy to be here.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you so much for doing this, dude. You came on the channel before anybody did when it was very new.
Right.
I got to watch Slipknot from the side of the stage. I will never forget that. I grew up truly loving your band. I love you guys just as much now as ever, and I'm grateful you guys are still doing this because it's had a huge impact in my life. So thank you for the entertainment. That new record, I'm genuinely stoked about that. I know you're bringing the rock and roll. September 15th, everybody, we got to ride for this record. He came on this channel. He didn't fucking have to do it, and we're grateful for that. So, Corey, thank you, dude.
Very welcome, buddy.